And now I'm here with Melissa Chen, who is a graduate student, but a science gal. And so, tell me, Melissa, what was your religious upbringing? What did your family teach you as your child?
So I grew up in Singapore. That's where I was born, in this former British colony. My parents were Protestant, in particular Methodist. So I was baptized Methodist, went to Methodist church, and by the time I was ready to go to school, in first grade, I was sent away to a convent for 6 years. And the reason being that during the time of colonialism in Asia, a lot of the best schools were founded by missionaries that came from Europe.
Yeah.
So one of the schools that I went to was a Catholic school that was founded by a French missionary who came to spread Catholicism in the Far East. So it was one of those like typical convents with like very high walls, and nuns were teaching us. And as far as I knew, I sort of attended religious schools all my life. When I went to high school, I went to a Christian school as well. But that's only because the best schools were the schools with the highest academic standards were also the schools with that were tied to religion, and that's because of this history of colonialism and missionaries that have brought education there. So Sunday school, I went to church every Sunday, very religiously, but I was always that annoying kid who asked too many questions.
Yeah, me too.
Who trolled the Sunday school teacher. They'll teach you about the story of creationism, and you know there's so many things that even in your cursory view of science as a child reading, childcraft encyclopedias, that I'm dating myself when I say the word encyclopedias, I think, but when you read those books and you know that, wait a minute, there was a huge space of time between dinosaurs, dying out and humans walking the earth.
Yes.
But you say God created the earth in just 6 days, and it's just a day apart. Like, how did that? Oh, God's time is different from your time. But these questions, when you ask them in a sustained manner in class, you cause all the other kids to also start questioning, and the teacher just finds you to be a nuisance.
Yes.
So what do? They either kick you out or say, like, call your parents and be like, "I'm going to tell you to shut up."
It was Noah's Ark that did me in.
Was it? Yeah, I mean, it was just. For me, it was creation, actually. Just even the 6 days, you talk about this is how everything began. So if I can find loopholes in how everything began, everything else that sits on top of it falls apart. It's like you have this like deck of cards, the house of cards, and you just pull out one at the bottom, right? Of course, along the way, there are many other stories, like Jonah and the fish. Yeah. And I was just people actually in Sunday school believed this happened, and like alongside this, I'm going to school studying about science and. For me, it was a problem.
Yeah, that's one of the paramount things in religion is to teach kids not to think. Don't ask questions, just accept what we tell you.
Right.
It's all true.
And you go to Sunday school at the age of, you start going at about 2 or 3, right? Like kindergarten and things like that. And when does like formal education begin? 7. So there's this lag where religion has had a head start for about 4 years. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. If you don't have a questioning mind, that's dangerous.
That's why they work very hard in getting you while you're young.
Exactly.
They want to get you before you've had a chance to see the world and realize that there's more going on than what the religion has to teach. And it's anyway. So, at what point did you realize that you were no longer believing this? I mean, was it really that young?
No, I mean the day I was comfortable coming out and saying, I think I'm an atheist, was the day I had finished reading Richard Dawkins' book, The Selfish Gene. I was 17 by then. And for some reason, I picked up this book to read. It was not unlike the book, The God's Illusion, which was a book about atheism. This was actually a book about genetics and like how one framework could explain all of life, right? That you had molecules in this primordial soup, and any molecules that could preserve information sort of survived better, and this one framework could explain how we got from molecules to single cellular organisms, bacteria, to multicellular organisms, to life today, and in so much it does explain behavior.
Yes.
It's such a powerful framework, and I was a huge proponent of Occam's razor. I don't like to assume several things at the same time just to make something fit into a hypothesis. I want to assume just one thing. Yeah. And then everything sort of falls in line. To me, the simplest explanation is closer to the truth. Yeah. and I embraced when Dawkins showed me that this one theory of the selfish gene and Darwinian selection was sufficient to explain all of the things that we've seen and experienced in life. I was sold, and I was sold not just on. By the time I closed the book, I was like, I think, oh my God, there is no God. Because even though I had always been skeptical, there was guilt.
Yeah.
There was guilt about not believing. I had been to church camps. They would make you feel bad, like as if like, I don't know, Satan was messing with your mind or things like that. And
obviously, a demon has taken hold of you.
Exactly.
And I got that a lot. I was like,
yeah,
demon, really?
And they make you feel guilty about it. That's
well, they tried, but it never worked on me.
Oh, yeah? So you didn't feel guilty about it?
No.
Oh, I did. I was...
Well, it's easy to look at religion and see religion's like that's wrong. But it's once you've been convinced that God is real, it's hard to rid yourself of that. I mean, you think there's all these different religions. Maybe the God part is real. I mean,
yeah.
And that's what I was, I'm constantly still being told, if God wasn't real, there wouldn't be all these different religions. I'm like, if God was real, there wouldn't be all these different religions. Why is that not clear to you? I mean,
right.
Yeah. But it's hard for people to give up the idea of God, even when they give up on religion.
Right.
It's the idea of there being some. I mean, I myself, until I was 40, wanted to believe. I mean, I wanted, Mother Earth or something. I wanted to believe that there was some plan, something in charge, and it was about 40 when I'm like, I give up. I can't see it. I can't accept it. So there's no reason for me to think it's real.
It's the ultimate sort of soothing pill to counter what Kierkegaard called the existential angst, right? Because we're all worried about it. I mean,
good things happen and bad things happen, and you want it to make sense. Yeah. And God, kind of is the excuse to make it make sense.
You want to sort of wrap your head around mortality and death, right? So that helps to think that there's some sort of afterlife. And it was very comforting.
Well, how did your family take to this? I mean, when did you reveal to your family that you?
I think they sort of found out through social media, which is harder. But I left the country. I left Singapore. So I left my family when I was like 18, and I came to university in the United States. I attended Boston University as an undergrad, and so actually Dawkins' book, it didn't just seal my identity as an atheist. It also gave me an idea of what I wanted to study in college, and so I became a geneticist because I knew I wanted to ask the big questions in life. And I said, okay, this one topic fascinated me so much, it's enough to make me want to spend my entire life asking those questions. And I thought maybe if I joined, the scientific profession, that I could be responsible for putting out evidence that would convince my own parents someday. I thought it would be so cool to have a hand in this enterprise that I thought was generating the most obvious argument for why obviously there is no God. So I majored in science, and I spent, it's so helpful to be away also from family, because if that was what was influencing you your whole time, and when you go to church as a young kid and you go to religious schools, your religious life is your social life.
Yes.
I had no friends that didn't go to church, and it's intertwined in a way that makes leaving it extremely even more difficult.
Yes.
So it's so rare. I think in my entire school, we might have had like maybe 400 students graduating out of high school. I only know 3 other atheists, including me.
Well, I always make the claim that there's a lot more atheists than anyone really realizes, because a lot of them are in the closet, for one, and they're still going to church because that is their social network. Yeah. That's
jobs,
what they know.
Everything. Their social reputations.
And coming out as atheists, they a lot of them lose that. I mean, some people lose their family over something as silly as not believing.
So I was lucky in that sense. I was away when I started becoming more vocal, and there was no one point I actually came out and said, "Mom, I believe in God," but
they had time to figure it out on their own.
But I did question them in ways that alluded to the fact that I was atheist. I'm like, how do you know that, Mom? How do you know that? Yeah. And she did not like it. Also, I come from a culture. My mom, we're Chinese, and I came from a culture where authority is sort of taken very seriously. You never talk back to your parents. Yes. I was a bit surprised when I came to the U.S.
It's in the Bible.
Oh, it is?
You must honor your father. I'm not sure about your mother.
Yeah, honoring, well, it's one of the commandments. You're right. Honor your mother and father. And this whole spare the rod and you spoil the child.
Yeah.
Capital punishment is in the Bible.
Yeah.
So it jives very well with Asian culture. I hate to say it, it does. It's because Confucianism, about honoring your parents, that you sort of give up your individuality more for a society that's stable, conformist. Yeah. All that kind of goes very well in Asian culture. Like capital punishment is totally permissible. In fact, it is encouraged. So I've always felt, and I still do, that there's something about the culture in Korea, in Japan, Korea and China especially, which Christianity is basically is fertile ground for Christianity to just take off. And we've seen that with mega churches in Korea and China.
Yes.
It's happening. They said China's going to be, by 2020 or 2025, the most number of Christians in the world. That's the growth. That's where the growth is.
Boggling my mind.
Yeah, but that's because the culture is making it a conducive environment for Christianity seeds to just grow. When my parents sort of started realizing what was happening, I felt so bad because I knew that my mom would feel that, and she does still probably, that this is her biggest mistake in life. That I am the biggest mistake in life, because as a Christian, our only job was to raise good Christian girls. And the fact that I not only became an atheist, but am vocal about it and encouraging other people about it, and run even a nonprofit, a group of atheists, that all more gets her, because it's you're not only an infidel, but now you're an infidel making more infidels. You're infidel factory. So nothing could be worse than that. And of course, I did consider this part. She actually feels hurt that she's not going to see me in heaven. She actually believes inside of heaven.
Yeah, my mother was the same way. It's my sister. They're like, I want you to be in heaven with them.
Yeah, they actually believe that there's this place that, And that was difficult. Should I, or she's at the end of her life, twilight life, should I just give her the comfort? But I was like, no, I have one life, and if I don't build a relationship with her where I can be myself, I'm squandering that life. Yeah. And when she passes, wouldn't it be worse? Maybe it's better for her.
Well, I figure at the level of deathbed, tell them whatever they want to hear, because at that point it doesn't really matter. But during their life, be as honest as possible. Don't say,
But I've had people tell me that you should be, you shouldn't be so vocal about it. You're angry with your mom. That's your, what if she has a stroke because of it? And I'm just
I get the same, why do you have to be so vocal about it? Why do you got to talk about it?
It's almost like me being who I am is going to hurt your feelings, so just don't be who you are.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. If that's going to float you a bit, but see, that's the thing. If the positions were reversed, I wouldn't be happy if someone was trying to please me by not being themselves. I'd just be like, no, just I'd rather you be yourself. But so I'm sort of behaving in a way that's tit for tat. I behave in a way that I would like to be behaved to.
Yeah. Well, I have this argument with my parents, is they want me to behave in a way that is comfortable to them.
For them.
And I want them to behave in a way that's comfortable to me. And for them, it's to be religious and to just not ask questions and just go along. Yeah. And for me, it's to not.
Right.
It would be the opposite.
So it's kind of funny. It's a little microcosm of the whole freedom of speech argument in society that we're having right now, where it's my beliefs are trampling on yours, your right to be happy, right? Gay marriage and everything. So it's kind of like a microcosm of that. It amazes me how religion comes to people, not only just having different religions, but to be non-religious. It's if somebody were to switch religions, well, at least you still believe in God. Right. They can accept that. Yeah.
But to not believe in God, all of a sudden,
because
where did I fail you?
Right.
How did I fail you that you no longer believe?
For some reason, that is a bigger threat, and I don't understand why. It doesn't make sense. Wouldn't it be that I'm believing in the wrong God be a bigger threat? No, it's actually the atheist that's a bigger threat. Yes. And somebody who believes in Allah, or somebody that converted to Buddhism.
Speaking of Allah, I found out today. In Hispanic culture, it's primarily Catholic. but the Catholic has lost a lot of people. I mean, they're down to like 65%, and the religion that's picking them up is Islam.
Really?
They're really marketing them. They're targeting them and marketing to them, and really showing what religion is. Religion is a cult that tries to get people in, and to get people to switch religions, especially in mass. Obviously, that religion is specifically targeted.
Yeah.
But they say about 20% of Hispanics have become Muslim.
Actually, it's funny because that's one of the things that sort of edged me towards atheism too, is because I was a Christian, I was a Protestant Methodist, baptized Methodist who went to Catholic school. And I remember that I would come home confused. We'd have compulsory mass every Monday or something. I would come home confused, like, Mom, why do we do this and this? And she's like, oh, just the Catholics do. I'm like, why is Jesus Christ on the cross? But when I go to church on Sundays, the cross is empty. So because the Catholics, they like to showcase the crucifix and the emphasis on Jesus' death. The Christians is about more like, the Protestants is about being reborn and Jesus has been raised from the dead. I'm like, but then I started getting more into like denominations, right? Like, wait, there's Lutherans, there's Baptists, like why are we Methodists? What's the disagreement there? And founded by. I'm like, wait, if we can't agree even within one so-called umbrella, then who is right?
And that's exactly what
that's the first line of the slippery slope. Like you start questioning just one.
I was able to go to different churches, different denominations, and each denomination said, no, they're wrong, we're right. Yeah. And I realized like they're all saying the other one's wrong. So basically, they're all wrong.
What if you're wrong? Yeah, and like when you ask them, like, what if you're wrong? Each one is so sure. And then on the other hand, when you sort of are studying science, you realize the epistemological humility of it. It never claims to know the truth, yet it is the truth. And it's always up for revision. Next year, if you can produce some result that disproves the previous result, then that's the new truth.
Yes.
And that was so appealing to me.
Yes. So, and I had to argue with people all the time who try to, badmouth science. I say, science doesn't care what you think of it. Science isn't something that... Science is a process of learning. And the reason science changes, you can't complain that, what they found last year, now it's a lie. Like, no, they just found new information that gave us a new
And it's the
reality.
Only self-correcting mechanism. The only thing that can disprove science is science itself.
Yes.
Nothing else.
And that's what I like about it. I love the idea. People love the Bible because it's never changing. It's always the same. It's been the same for 2,000 years. It's you can say this is the holy book and that's the law. Yeah. Where science is constantly changing, which makes it interesting. It's this is what we knew now, but now we have this new information, so it's constantly new and interesting. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I love science. It's constant. It's like technology. It's constantly changing. It's constantly interesting. You never know what's going to, the next thing's going to be.
Exactly.
I mean, just recently they found in a cave.
The new fossil.
Yeah, the new level of humanity.
Yeah.
Which, that's really cool.
It's a cousin.
Yeah,
cousin. I don't really know where it fits yet. I was actually in South Africa earlier this year when I saw the caves and everything that these were discovered in the... Because I go to South Africa every year for to be in the field in paleoanthropology. That's what I'm interested in. Yeah. It's not where the funding is for science, but it's what I'm interested in because I feel like I reasoned into atheism from the perspective of human origins, and I thought if I was part of the process to put information out there that I can say I contributed something to humanity. With regard to sort of widening people's views on how we came to be, rather than having these stupid creation myths sort of litter our minds. Yeah. Of course, that's not true because the more evidence, there's this endless goalpost moving, right? Yes. It's like it used to be that we found so much proof of evolution. Yes. There has not been a single fossil in the wrong place at the wrong time. The continuity of the genetic code. So many things, just corroborate, and then you have other fields coming together. Morphology and sort of paleontology is agreeing with our DNA, which is agreeing with phylogenetics, which is agreeing with even linguistics. So now different branches of science are corroborating each other, and yet we still nothing has disproved evolution as a theory. So what more do you want? And I realized that even though, I thought, okay, I'm going to be part of it now and I'm going to release I'm going to be able to publish data that sort of might sort of show people that science was the correct path.
Yes.
No, they're just going to move the goalposts. It's just kind of like if we find aliens out there, you're going to say, you know what, that wasn't really discluded in the Bible. Like they're just going to. It's just a continual game. So I got jaded.
So, well, what are you doing now? You say you have a group. What are you doing now to promote positive atheism?
So I met Faisal Al-Mutar, who's an Iraqi refugee who moved to the United States. And I met him, I would say, more than a year ago. And I was really entrenched by his message. Also, Islamic atheism, Islamic ex-Islamic atheists.
Yes.
Their whole story is, I almost feel stupid having to talk about my story because what they had to go through to become atheists is so much worse that my story's trivial.
Yeah.
Like, you went through hell, you have to deal with your parents, great. Yeah, they almost, they're at risk of losing their lives.
Yeah, it's life-threatening to be a Muslim atheist.
And that's when I realized, like, I sort of, like, woke up when I met him and heard his story, and I was like, he is not even using his story to sort of push his ideas and sort of spread it. He's like, I don't want to be victimized. I came out of it, and whatever happened in the past happened, and he was so nonchalant about what, to me, was traumatic.
Yes. And
then here I am going on about my Christian parents, and this, and we didn't get along. I'm like, I'm like, okay, we need to do something about this. And I started focusing less on sort of the trauma of just my experience and saying, all right, how do we look forward? How do we sort of counter this rise of what seems to be a rise in religious fundamentalism, especially in the Middle East right now, which is a big problem, especially with ISIS and all the geopolitics that's going on in the Middle East. I didn't really understand the whole like Sunni Shia divide, something that is, I think, pushing so much of what's going on. And I started sort of understanding that a bit more, talking to him and everything. And he runs a very popular social media group on Facebook called the Global Secular Humanist Movement. Sort of has a very high following. I would say more than 300 people subscribe to the feed. Each post gets at least 1 million or 2, up to 4 probably views. And it's sort of, he's sort of created a community of people, all over the world. I've looked at the statistics from like who's looking at the feed and everything, and I thought, okay, we'll just post in the day maybe, and at night, we'll sleep. No, because at night you have people now in Australia waking up, and they're reading the articles that are posted, and we can see that in the statistics. So now, like, all right, well, this is a 24-hour thing. It's truly global. We don't want to just focus on domestic issues in the United States and things like that. Like, that's the thing. And I love and follow the work of the American Humanist Association, secular, but they're mostly focused on very domestic issues. What Faisal has been able to do is create a community of people who are interested in wide range of anything pertaining to religion around the world. So you're talking about the Rohingya in Myanmar, who are being, who are having their own migrant crisis of their own. What's going on in Syria, what's going on in Australia with the new prime minister, and sort of like founding a haven for like-minded people around the world who are not exactly, who are all atheists. Or humanists who identify with that, but who are interested in religion as a phenomenon rather than just particular religions. Like, why do we believe? These are very big questions, and it's not easy to dismiss with sort of a lot of bias and hatred that some of the atheist pages just outright do. Like, we're not there to mock them. We're there to understand, like, why is it that this is happening in this part of the world?
At Gateway to Reason, David Smalley had, during the show, he had a Christian on. And we were talking about the Bible. And he called out the crowd, like, who here has read the Bible? Who here has a Bible app on their phone? And it's all atheists. And of course, at least 3/4 of us raised our hands. And the question was like, why do you have Bibles if you don't believe? It's because we want to be educated. We want to know what it says and understand what it says so we can explain why it's ridiculous.
Right.
Because most Christians, they only read the good parts. And it takes, an atheist to read the bad parts and say, this is what you're believe.
It's
If you
a
can believe,
text.
it's the whole thing or nothing.
Right.
So if you're going to believe this good stuff, you also have to be believing this bad stuff.
No, I have to say, like, I would read a piece of research, you know, and they would show something like one of the big things in genetics is the field called epigenetics,
Yes.
where we're studying things outside the genome that affect people.
Yes.
So like chemical factors, hormones, things like that,
Yes.
whatever, that are inherited through, you know, somehow in the germline,
Yes.
but are not part of your DNA. And so I remember reading this article. I forwarded it to my mom. It was a science paper that was just published about how the epigenetics of what if your grandmother smoked, the epigenetics
Yes.
are affected for about 2 to 3 generations. And I remember saying, you know, I messaged my mom. I forwarded her this paper, and I said, "Hey, Mom, doesn't this remind you of something?" And she reads it, and she's like, "What?" I'm like, "You remember in the Bible when they said the sins of the father will carry on for 2 to 3 generations, Deuteronomy, blah, 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 blah."
Yeah.
She's like, "No." And I had to go source the Bible, you know, the Bible verse, and I give it to her. She's like, "Listen, I thought you're an atheist. You don't remember. Like, why do you know this?" I'm like, "Because actually, I think it's precisely because I've read the Bible in its entirety and studied it that
Yeah.
in and of itself, it's the best argument for atheism. I didn't even have to resort. It contradicts
Yeah.
itself. Like,
Oh,
you
all over
know,
the place.
the same book, like the 4 Gospels. So, yeah, it's very common.
A lot of people say this. The best way to make an atheist is have them read the Bible.
Yes.
Because,
But not read it, you know, on a superficial level.
yeah, to
Read.
actually read what it says and actually consider that, you know, this is supposed to be true. You know, it's not, you know, they're not presented as stories. These are presented as facts. And you're supposed to believe the whole thing.
Right.
And if you don't believe the whole thing, then you don't really believe.
Right.
I mean, if you're only cherry picking, I mean, I have people all the time who go, you know, don't you want to, you know, the old, don't you want to believe just in case? It's like, just in case what?
Nature.
Just in case your God is an idiot and can't see through the obvious, you know, trickery of going, oh, of course I believe. Can I get in heaven now?
Exactly. What kind of God is that if you can fool him?
Yeah.
Into believing?
I mean, another favorite is the first commandment. You know, everyone says there's only one true God. It's like, oh, really? What's the first commandment? Thou shalt have no other God before me. Even your God admits there's other gods. So, you know, that's the first, you know, the first thing. It's, you know,
Right.
jealous God and don't, you know, I'm first. So, anyway, so one of my big pushes is to encourage other people to be outspoken.
Right.
You're obviously outspoken. I'm pretty outspoken.
Yeah.
What would you say to people to encourage them to be more outspoken and to be comfortable? I mean, my objective is to help people feel comfortable in being an atheist and be comfortable expressing their atheism. And atheism has a bad name that we're working very hard to
counteract.
Yeah,
You're right.
So what would you say to people to encourage them to be more open, either openly atheist or openly secular, and to encourage others?
This seems to be a numbers game. The more people come out, the more of an environment you make it, you know, comfortable enough for other people to come out. So there's a cooperative effect.
Yes.
It's going to be sort of exponential. For me, the reason I came out and was so open about it, especially on social media, I make all my posts public. Probably to my detriment. Someday I will never be able to run for office or anything, right? And I'm aware of that. But the reason I felt kind of responsible was because also I am in a profession that I'm not affected by it.
Yeah.
I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts. This is the secular haven of the nation, if there was one.
Yeah.
I could throw a stone and it would just not hit a religious person. You know, I am in the university community, and universities are hotbeds of liberals and atheists in general. They're basically secular generators.
Yeah.
So I felt there's not going to be a pushback. I didn't live in the Bible Belt. I didn't have any religious family living with me. So if I couldn't speak up, then who could?
Yeah.
So primarily that was my motivation. I realized, you know, especially in science, I would be untouched. You know, there was no consequence to me speaking up. So I decided to. However, if you do live in the place, though, I understand the you know, your apprehension at trying to be vocal about your atheism, but I think that the more people come out, the more you're creating an environment where it becomes more and more okay. So it's just a numbers game. Like, if I would say if you're alive, and this is the thing, I work with Faisal, the Iraqi guy, and he gets death threats all the time.
Yes.
All the time from ex-Muslims, from current Muslims, like all over.
Yes.
And just very pro-Arab Muslims, ex-Muslims even, and so you have a situation where if a guy like that, for me, it's just perspective. If he can be vocal about what he believes, why am I not vocal? Like, he's giving up so much so that other people can have an environment where they can come out and, you talk about these Bangladeshi bloggers this year who have been pretty much killed because of expressing certain beliefs.
Yes.
Because they're atheists, and that could have been him. And he's like, nope. I'm just gonna put my beliefs out there. Why do I feel that? All right, great. Maybe I'll lose my job. Yeah, somebody almost could have lost his life.
Yeah.
And you weigh those two things in perspective, and you're like, okay, maybe it's time to
to step
just
up.
Come out.
Yeah, step up and encourage other people. I mean, for those who it is easier for. I mean, for me, it was incredibly easy to express it because I've always been that way.
Also,
But for some people, I mean, they have fear losing their social circle or their family. But others they're just going with the flow. They don't believe, but why rock the boat?
I've had professors like that.
Why upset their parents?
Exactly.
And sometimes you need to stand up and
they're the free riders in the system. I feel though, like these because I have had biology professors whom I've spoken to, and they're like, oh, Melissa, why do you have to go rock the boat? I go to church. I don't believe in stuff, but I go to church. I warm the bench every Sunday. Yeah. I'm just like, but you're free riding on the fact that I'm doing. Like, you're not willing to put yourself in a situation where everyone's expecting you, because there are consequences to coming out. There are. I've faced some.
Yes.
But again, nothing as drastic as what my friends had to go through. But these people who are like, I'll just go with the flow. I'll sit, on Sundays. I'll look like I'm Christian on stuff. I really don't believe. They're free riders. Yeah. They're total free riders on the sort of danger that everybody else is. If everybody came out, it's a numbers game. All of a sudden, this is not marginalized behavior. This becomes completely mainstream, and more people can come out, and more people can come out, and then you help other people in closed societies to come out, and it becomes normal. And in 5 years, we'll have an atheist president. It's just.
Well, I say what tipped the scale for me was the last election, where they were asking, the presidential candidates, do you believe in God? Do you believe in evolution?
Yeah.
That blew my mind, and I've got a child, and I don't want her to live in a world where whether a candidate believes in God is a factor at all. And I truly believe that in at least America, atheism is probably at least 30%. At least. I'd say closer to 35. And if all those people were to say, hey, I'm an atheist, the political system would change.
Absolutely.
Because they'd realize, now I've got a new group. I mean, right now they're like, oh, they're all Christians, so we got to cater to them.
But there's also there's the question, how do you hurt cats, right? And atheists are by nature free thinking.
Yes.
Individuals who don't like organization. Many of them actually sort of got out because they didn't like organized religion. So if you want to organize, that sort of creates some problems. It's just a personality profile also.
Yeah. Well, there's having events like this, PastaCon, and there's Skepticon. I went to Gateway to Reason.
Oh,
there was American Atheist in Memphis. Okay. And we're having the Reason Rally this summer and in June.
Next summer, right?
Next summer, yes.
2016.
In June.
Okay, yeah.
So there's getting to be more and more events like this that are gathering up atheists to find the common cause and to get involved and to let their voices be heard.
Right.
I think that's an important thing, and these things are a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, I think we also somehow have to fill the social functions that. Two things. We have to fill the social functions that religion has filled in the past, and also the civic one.
Yes.
So, giving back, churches do a lot of community work, and of course they're doing it to get you into the door so that they can convert you. But when that crumbles, we will have to figure out how we're going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think one thing, it creates a sense of community also. So it could be like a two-pronged strategy. We could be serving a civic function, superstitions, whatever, atheist volunteering on the weekends, but that could also serve the social part because you're meeting up with atheists.
Well, that's exactly what this is. This is more for me a social event. I've got tons of friends. Yeah, I'd love to see the speakers and I see what's going on. But like here we have Penn and Teller talking, which would be outstanding.
So I'm dressed as a magician today.
But just seeing people who believe the same things I believe, it's so refreshing to know that everyone around me not necessarily agrees with me, but understands where I'm coming from, which is something I don't get at home. So.
Right, exactly. In our normal lives.
Or at work. I mean, I have lots of conversations at work about religion, and there's very few people who are willing to admit that they don't believe. But those who do believe are more than happy to tell you why you're wrong.
Oh, exactly.
Well, Melissa, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me, and I hope you enjoyed. Oh, definitely. And I hope you enjoyed the show tonight, and I'll see you around this weekend. And I'm Tom, your friendly neighborhood atheist, and this is Secular TV, and this has been No Old White Guys, and we'll see you next time.
I am white, though.
You're not a god.
Appropriation.
I was made this way.